What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we had talked extensively about E3 officially being canceled after the ESA put out a statement, which followed several rumors the night before. But publishers, developers, all kinds of companies are still looking to do something around that time. And even though June is going to look much different than what we've been used to the last 25 years with the big E3 trade show, we'll talk about what some of the publishers and developers who are at least trying to put plans out there are looking to do. Also, we have to talk a bit about that JoyCon drift situation that's been kind of quiet recently. A few more things are happening now. We're going to talk a bit about where that's headed currently. And then we had heard about Switch shortages. Well, we're starting to get some of the numbers to kind of back up what we thought to be happening, which was that there would be massive supply constraints around the Switch hardware selling early part, possibly going into the late part of this year. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 400,000 subscribers. And we're going to start today with a mystery game, at least one that was mentioned in the latest CoroCoro magazine. It was translated. Famitsu covered it here. And it talks about an unannounced game from an unannounced publisher. Very, very descriptive. Plenty of hints here, right? Well, one quote says, "A new world that utilizes Switch's performance to its very limit, where battles break out between skyscrapers in the middle of a peaceful city." I believe people are looking at this wondering if this is for Ninjala, which is I guess a game that's coming out and has been talked about, but this does at least say unannounced. So maybe it's something different, although it has been compared to Splatoon and Fortnite. All right, so it's an online multiplayer game, I guess, for the most part. So we'll see with that one. They've also said it's going to be adapted or currently being adapted into a manga as well. So there's not a ton to go on here outside of that, but I mean, we assume a Nintendo Direct is coming up in the next 2 weeks or so, with the Indie Showcase coming first, according to rumors. So we'll probably find out about this unannounced game that was in CoroCoro magazine fairly soon. Also, we had heard about that Iron Man VR game, right? It was delayed, I believe, into May, and it was to kind of polish it and make it a bit better, whether it's running better or looking better, just overall quality of it. But one thing you can look forward to, it seems, is that it will get a demo of some kind. This was spotted by a now suspended Twitter account that was basically keeping track of all of those PlayStation entries onto the PlayStation Network. Remember how we found out about the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo and then Patapon getting remastered and all of that? That Twitter account's actually been suspended. I assume it was taken down because maybe Sony wasn't too excited about all of the data mining and stuff that was going on. Oh, there's an update for this game because it's getting a demo. Well, it might be harder to spot that kind of stuff now, although I know there's also a full website, but that Twitter handle got shut down. So I guess that means that if you are someone who is interested in that Iron Man VR game, a demo appears to be on the way. No word when, because remember, we spotted that Final Fantasy VII Remake demo way before it finally got released, so it can sit on the PlayStation Store for quite a while. Oh, and I know most of us are looking forward to Cyberpunk after it got delayed into September. We're at least keeping an eye on it. I know there's still fears that it could be delayed even further. I've seen that as well, get like another delay. But it looks like they're on track now because they have submitted it for an age rating. Now, it could, I guess, get kicked back with an adult rating, and they're like, okay, what can we change and try to fix this up? But the fact that it is at least ready to be looked at by the different boards, as PEGI or ESRB or whoever, that means that, I mean, they're getting close to the finish line, which is good news, because I do want to play this game, but if we're already waiting to September, keep this in mind. Next month, we would have been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake already, and then the next month we would have been playing Cyberpunk. This would have been a pretty good first half already of 2020, but Cyberpunk falling into September, at least we know that they are now on track, and we could be seeing it, I think, coming out straight up in September, especially if they're already looking for an age rating. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this E3 talk. It was insane yesterday. It was all over the place. It was crazy. Seriously, there was so much information flying all over the place, so much confusion. People were trying to figure out what's going to happen now that E3 has been officially canceled, at least as we know it. The ESA has said that they're going to try more of a digital E3, which is kind of something most of us experience anyway. The vast majority of us tune into the live streams, we see the coverage, and that's about it. We pretty much all have digital E3 experiences anyway, but keep in mind, everyone who's there makes those digital experiences possible. Whether you're watching the Treehouse at Nintendo, right? People are, of course, sitting in a room playing the game and talking about it with developers, or you enjoy Microsoft's or even Square's recently, where they had a full live presentation. They all have to go there. So the fact that we're going to go all digital could mean we would see a very different looking E3 despite all of us still staying home. However, it seems that several publishers do want to still have their own digital presentation, and I'm not sure if all of these companies are going to be talking to the ESA or they're going to do their own thing, like just whenever. I would like them to all stick within that week, right? It makes it so much easier for us. Okay, this is the week where all of the video game news and madness is going to take place. Much easier to plan around that rather than just, here comes Square, they're going to do their thing in May, and then randomly the third week in June, Nintendo will drop their Direct, and then Microsoft will do their thing at the beginning of June or July. It'll be really tough, right, to be all over the place there. But it does look like we're starting to get some messages from these companies where we can look forward to hearing more about their overall schedule. For example, here's Ubisoft, who does, of course, agree with the ESA's decision to cancel E3 as a live event, saying we're exploring other options for a digital experience that will allow us to share all the exciting news we have planned. Stay tuned for more. Now, of course, Ubisoft loves to do these live presentations where they bring in a bunch of people. They'll have even actors and people who are in the game with their likenesses show up on stage, developers. Everyone shows up to their events. They have usually a whole dancing number. It's a whole thing. Almost always gets us copyright claimed and even struck down most years. So maybe I won't have to worry about that, or they'll just show us the next Just Dance and oh wow, it's on the Wii, and there goes the live streaming ability. We also had Devolver Digital tweeting out, the week of E3 has always been a big part of what we do and are genuinely bummed about the cancellation of the event itself. Lots to juggle, but right now we plan on having a live stream, Devolver Direct/press conference, and possibly more. Now, Devolver Digital is one of the ones that I thought about right away. I'm like, they always have the best one. It's at least fun. Okay, maybe, and they might not have the biggest games, but they really do have a lot of fun and try to make it as entertaining as possible. They try to make it funny. They'll take jabs at different part of the industry, microtransactions, cryptocurrency, all of this stuff. And it's just a good time, whether they do their own Direct, which they kind of did last year, right? Remember, it looked kind of like a Direct doing different things on screen that I guess wouldn't be considered advertiser friendly on YouTube, but they still had a lot of fun with it. That's the one that I looked at and I said, oh yeah, that's right. But live stream event, I'd tune in for that. Also, we do have Microsoft to talk about here as well. And that was from Phil Spencer, who tweeted out, E3 has always been an important moment for Team Xbox. Given this decision this year, we'll celebrate the next generation of gaming with the Xbox community and all who love to play via an Xbox digital event. Details on timing and more in the coming weeks. So we should know pretty soon, I think, as to when Microsoft will do their event. Keep in mind, they were separate from E3 anyway. I mean, it was held around the same time, but they weren't reliant on getting a booth or a room or a meeting area or any of that stuff. They had their own place, right? So they were just going to set up shop and just, okay, let's do this big event. And they are one of they would have the most important, I would say, at this point at E3, because they were going to show up with at least one new system. Always possible that Lockhart could have been there as well. But the Series X, yes, that would have been a really cool show to see some of the first real Series X games, see them playable and all of this, and obviously have the big push towards holiday when they inevitably release this thing. And then aside from that, Nintendo did say that they agree with the decision, and that's about it. They didn't really say anything from there, but keep in mind, Nintendo does a Direct anyway, so we would just watch a live stream that they would present, and maybe they just don't do the Treehouse and then waste $5-10 million on a whole booth at E3. They'll just have a Direct, and that'll kind of be it. They could, like I said, they could also set up shop in one of their Nintendo America or Japan locations and just do the Treehouse there. They don't even really need E3 for that, really, to be honest. So I think Nintendo will be mostly business as usual. I'll be more curious if they change the timing of their Direct overall outside of that E3 week. And then even moving beyond E3, Jeff Keighley did mention several times in different replies on Twitter that he's already planning for the possibility of Gamescom becoming more digital and less of a live event, and even the same thing with the Game Awards. So he's already planning ahead. I think that's smart, to get that all figured out so it doesn't sneak up on you like E3 has here, where they're obviously scrambling right now. I'm just curious, again, as to the timing of these live streams, these pre-recorded events. Hopefully, you know what, I thought about it. I just hope it's all in the same week. Just get it all out of there, done, and then they can push towards releases for some of these games, because their marketing roadmap is probably already done with E3 in mind, and now they have to go back and try to figure out scheduling for that. But at least they're all considering their own digital event, their own directs, essentially, and we could just have like 8 or 9 presentations to watch. Okay, that would be fun. I think I'd be okay with that. A lot of live streaming to do and seeing a whole bunch of games revealed. The only thing they'll be missing, like I said, is that live touch and the ability to, of course, show off the games in person. So no live audience, no big, these big booths and all this stuff. But either way, I think it'll be a lot of fun still, because there's still a ton of games that need to be announced and they got to do it somewhere. So these presentations, I'm all for that. Next up, let's talk about the JoyCon Drift. Nintendo did try to dismiss the case, but it was rejected. So they still have to go along with this. They were just trying to say, this is JoyCon Drift. It's not that big of a deal, I guess. We're gonna move past this case. And then they had a motion to dismiss and they were denied. So we are going forward even further with this class action lawsuit for JoyCon drifting in, I guess, the Joy-Cons themselves, and even the Switch Lite, with concerns of drift around that as well. It's something that people have had to deal with more than you would think, to the point where Nintendo started offering free repairs. At least Nintendo of America did, and I know others did as well. Some did not. So this class action lawsuit, it appears, going forward is more for reimbursement or just in general trying to get something from Nintendo for restitutions around the Joy-Con drift. What will they get? Well, they're apparently going to arbitration, which means that it'll most likely be settled out of court, with people being brought in to decide what's going to happen here through arbitration, where they just go through the facts and they try to come up to some sort of solution. Maybe you get a coupon in the mail. Seriously, it's class action lawsuits. The problem with these is they take forever. I think it was 2 years ago, people just got like this check for not a couple bucks, I think, for if you had bought a PS3 on launch day with other OS and then it was taken away. It took that long. Yeah. So this Joy-Con drift stuff is going to, I think, fall completely out of the Switch's lifespan. Although who knows, maybe we'll be using Joy-Cons next generation as well. I hope not. I hope that's something that they work to improve going into next generation, but they still might be possibly paying out some sort of restitution for Joy-Cons, like 5 or 6 years from now when we're talking about the next Switch. Next up, let's talk about the weekly Famitsu sales charts. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we had heard quite a bit about there being supply constraint around issues, obviously, in the world right now when it comes to manufacturing the systems in China, like the Switch. Well, it looks like they are seeing some issues with supply in Japan. We're actually going to go over to the charts here. Oh, by the way, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon did launch this past week and sold 138,548, which for that series is not bad. Pokemon Sword was below that at 2, Minecraft was at 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate there at 5, Ring Fit Adventure, and then we have Persona 5 Scramble on the PS4, Super Mario Party, Splatoon 2, and then Brain Training. But let's jump over here to hardware, because this is where things get pretty interesting. The Switch was at the top, 50,585, the PlayStation 4 below that, 13,771, the 3DS below that at almost 1,300, and then the Xbox One at 89. Now, the interesting thing about the Switch is that out of that large amount, the 50,000, only 4,424 of those were the original Switch. The other 46,161 were the Switch Lite. Now, if you remember before, the regular Switch would consistently outsell the Switch Lite in Japan, and most likely they just have a supply left over of Switch Lite from stuff that was stocked previously, and that's why it is outselling the Switch. This is going to be something that they will be dealing with for a good part of this year, and unfortunately it probably will damage just their overall sales numbers throughout the year, so we might be seeing just less numbers in general, although it's currently affecting mostly Japan, and the US has not been affected as much, which is like their biggest market for selling systems. So we'll see in like their next financial report. The MPDs will also probably paint a bit of a picture as well for the Switch, but it's gonna be a tough year for the Switch when it comes to being able to produce enough systems to go alongside of their what I think is going to be their pretty big software going into the holiday. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Google Stadia and Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal, of course, is coming out on the 20th alongside of Animal Crossing, and I'm going to pick up both. Animal Crossing probably after Doom. Play Doom for a bit, and then go to Animal Crossing to kind of relax and calm down, But Google Stadia is going to be getting this game, and there's been a lot of promises around 4K at 60 frames per second. Now, the current consoles, the Xbox One X being like, I guess the best experience out of the consoles, is 1800p at 60 frames per second upscaled to 4K, which most of us would look at that and say, all right, I probably won't be able to notice that big of a difference, right? Sure. But Stadia's big thing has been pushing even over 10 teraflops. Remember, they showed that off, and it was this big deal about how the power of the cloud will help them to produce the best image, 120 frames, 8K, and all this stuff, right? They were talking like crazy with this. Doom Eternal is not 4K on Stadia. Eurogamer pointed this out, that it is 1800p at 60 frames per second, upscaled to 4K, exactly like the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X is competing straight up with Stadia, despite Stadia being more than 1.5 times as powerful as the Xbox One X. It is weird. Stadia is doing some strange stuff right now. I mean, a lot of that I think has to do with these companies still trying to work through what Google is offering them with their own setup, what is AMD's setup that they have over there with their servers, and they have to work through the streaming aspect, and keep in mind, it's still going to be kind of compressed, so it might still not look the best. But when I was playing Destiny 2, I thought it looked pretty good, and it was 60 frames. That was really cool. But to have Doom Eternal in the Xbox One X and then the Stadia match up like exactly, that's strange to me, but it's Stadia, so, what can you do? Although, I really don't think you're going to notice a massive difference between the two when it comes to resolution and upscaling. More so the idea of compression through streaming is what you will notice. However, I think most people who pick it up on Stadia, a fast action game like Doom, are already going to be kind of hampered by some of the latency that you will probably notice the most, I would say, with Doom. Either way, though, it'll be out on the 20th. You can pick it up on all the different platforms. I believe if we go down the list here of resolution and frame rate, the original Xbox One or the Xbox One X or S, 900p, 60 frames per second, PS4 base, 1080p, 60 frames per second, PS4 Pro, 1440p at 60 frames per second, Xbox One X, and Stadia would be 1800p at 60 frames per second. Those last two upscaled, of course, to 4K, and then PC, well, whatever you have and what you can push is up to you. I'd like to think if you have something like a 2070 Super, you'll be pushing 4K in Doom Eternal just because the game runs really well. They know what they're doing on id Tech, so interesting stuff there. But let me know what you guys think about Stadia and the Xbox One X actually comparing pretty favorably with Doom Eternal. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day. This one's from Stu saying, my understanding was Activision's Tony Hawk license expired in 2019, which is why they rushed Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. So hopefully this game will have a new developer. And that is something that I had heard as well. It seemed to be kind of passed around. I don't know if people were just like looking for a reason why it was so bad. I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 came out, what, like 5 years ago or so? It's been a little while, right? And my hope is that like the following years, like they had an idea for another one, and that one did have to be rushed, and that this one they spent a bit more time on because they had the license for so many more years. And after Newswave yesterday, I started receiving some messages around the idea of a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game coming soon, and it does appear that there is a bit more to that story overall. So another Tony Hawk game. The real question is not necessarily at this point if another Tony Hawk game is coming, because it seems like it is. It's if it's going to be any good, because we saw what happened with 5. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is E3, all of the plans that these publishers and developers are trying to make right now, how scattered it kind of feels currently, and if you'd rather all of the different live streams and pre-recorded stuff be in 1 week, kind of organized with a big schedule, or do you want them to just kind of scatter them a bit? Some in May, some in June, some in July as we head towards the holidays. Let me know, I guess, about that. Also, Nintendo and their JoyCon drifting situation there in the courts going to arbitration now. Do you think we'll finish that thing up in the next 4 or 5 years? And then, of course, the Switch shortages in Japan, and then Stadia. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.